Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. I think we are all overwhelmed to see how we can use laminates in design. And we are all been thinking that probably we have not been using enough. And by today's presentations, I feel that we have got different thought process by which we can probably use more of these in our projects. So as far as India is concerned, there is a big transformation that is happening under the leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister with a vision of a developed India by 2047. So in Creative Group, we have a legacy of 52 years of design in India. And the firm is being led by Professor Shah. He is being known as the airport king in the country, designed more than 50 plus airports all across India. Now recently being also commissioned the Belgrade airport, and one of the biggest Nepal airports also being done by us. So 55 plus airports, 45 railway stations, and more than 20 land ports and 160 institutional projects. So the vision is, I came to Armenia and I thought, what is the population of the city? And I was amazed that it is 1 million, close to 1 million and 2 million. And in India, we have a population of 1.4 billion and growing. So there is a huge mobility that needs to be provided to this kind of a population. And in terms of the airports, in 2007, the modernization in terms of airport infrastructure started to happen in the country. And there was a first international design competition where we had to build a 250,000 square meters of a terminal building. And at that time, the vision was how we can bring global flavor in the country, how we can create structures which are unique and at the same time can have that global flavor of large cantilevers, total open spaces. And that's when we came up with this idea of creating these structures. So taking inspiration from the wings of the bird, we arrived at this structure, keeping the south shaded by one of the largest cantilevers of 24 meters, and creating the belly of the terminal, scooping it out so that we can create 7 facets. The full terminal is totally daylit during the daytime. Completed photographs. So this was the first project which is connected by all 4 modes of transportation, having a domestic and an international terminal, followed by a connecting tube, a station, and the highway. So for creating this project, this was the first project where in a mega structure, you also have the opportunity in architecture to just not create an architecture piece, but bring architecture and engineering together. So this is the first project where steam curing was done in the country. This is the first project where we were able to bring down the thickness of a flyover from 2 meters to 400 mm. So you see, by reducing the thickness, we were able to create a facade which was much more visible. And also, when you need mobility, you need to think out of the box. So below the flyover, we created a connector tube which was connecting the domestic and the international terminals, which were 1.2 kilometers apart, all in steel. Some of the construction photographs of the site. How these trusses came together. And this was the first time where 0.5 meter dia of a truss, 16 mm thick, hot rolled, was bent in the country. So all column-free spaces. So that was the first urban modernization in terms of transportation in 2007. And looking at that, in the smaller cities, people wanted to have terminals which are much more organic. So we started to have terminals where 3-dimensional curves were attempted. And this is a regional airport. Lighting. Roof. The roofs were designed in such a way that in every truss, main truss, you get the daylight. Some of these sketches of thought processes, airside. You know how this vision of the truss in terms of the lattice structure was thought about. The main trusses are all daylit. The eyes of the center. The south was shaded. So from this modernization in 2010 came the time when we realized that maybe less is more. And maybe we need to create our structures which are much more simpler. And then today, when we are thinking of these projects, we are creating projects which are much more simpler, easy to maintain, and also having much more local flavor. So from global, we have started to go towards the local and getting the local art inside these terminals so that the culture also comes inside these projects and make them much more lively. So that's how they look now. From outside. So this is a very recent project, terminal done just very recently, completed in 14 months. And here, the idea of a fort, how our cultural heritage can be brought in a very Scandinavian style of architecture. So you see on the sides are the bastions which represent the fort, but from the front the terminals are much simpler, much cleaner in terms of the design intent. And you see on the top, we have the local art engraved on the facade of the terminal. So that's how it comes up. So this is the Gwalior Fort, the regional fort from which the design has been inspired from. This is the actual bastion, and this is the inspiration that has been taken for the project, with skylights. And these are skylights which kind of create a very, very beam in terms of light inside the terminal. Construction photographs. So inside flavor of local art coming inside the terminals, which volumes, which are absolutely column free. So now everyone wants a place which is very regional and which has a cultural flavor of that very specific place. So every individual in India is demanding that we want a local flavor in a global facility. And this is Rajkot. Here, jali patterns have been utilized to create a facade. And embossing of the local art right on the facade of the terminal. Inside, again, the check-in counters reflecting the artwork and having baffles, wooden baffles. I think my friends in Greenlam would like it, that in the terminals, you know, we are using extensive woodwork with skylights, construction photographs. And now, a very, very regional context of a terminal. This is a terminal in Ayodhya where the culture of temple is being highlighted in the terminal design. So taking inspiration from the birthplace of Lord Ram and thinking of a terminal, how it can be much more regional, how the terminal would not feel out of context, but can be very, very local and can be a starting point of a religious destination. So this is a project that is just now starting. And now interiors also having a flavor of that context. You know, this is a idea of how the diyas or the candles can be shown in the sky, on the ceiling, with the pictorial depiction of the artwork. And now similar to this, there is a vision of transformation of almost 1,200 railway stations in the country. So one of the biggest being the Ahmedabad that I would like to present. This is a $1 billion project where there is a thought process of how a railway station infrastructure can be changed, and there can be a public and commercial utilization of those spaces, because railway stations are right at the heart of the city and there is so much of scope of improvement. So this is a MMTH, a multimodal hub, where on the ground and on the first are the concourses, and on the top is commercial areas for utilization of passengers. And the inspiration for this project is how the fluidity and colors of the regional place can be utilized in the design process. So this is the concourse on top of the tracks, with the roads coming right where the tracks are. Because the space in Indian cities are very, very limited. So, you know, constructing these modern spaces right out of where the tracks are, that's the only way to do it. And utilizing current materials like cotton steel, creating voids so that people who are coming to these can come out and also experience the outside. So this is the first major railway station modernization, and this is the concourse. On the other side is the high-speed rail connectivity. So the material application. So now you've looked at the aviation, the station, and now one of the first urban ropeways that is coming in India. So we are very glad that we have also been associated with that. So this is Prayagraj. This is another railway station where we have kind of representative the river Ganga in 3 connotations. So there is a city side, there is a air side, on top of the tracks. So the facade. Lot of artwork representation which makes these stations much more local and connected with the people. The plazas. Interiors. One thinks of the interiors, and you know, this is the idea where the Sagar Manthan, or you know, when the churning of the ocean was done, so that thematic representation of the history is connotated on the roof through different patterns and the colonnades. So this is all above the tracks. And this would be one of the biggest in India. This would be a $2 billion project where, in terms of urban design, you know, one is constructing on a station which has a daily capacity of 50 million passengers per day. So handling that kind of a capacity is in Calcutta. So this is the biggest station where we are connecting with the ferry terminal, with the tracks, and also with the bus terminal. So all 3 modes of transportation getting together. Segregation of the arriving and the departing passengers. and creating a roof which is totally solar so that we can make these projects off the grid and sustainable. So in terms of urban ropeways, this is Varanasi, and here in this city, when you walk, you don't have any space. You can't walk. There is so much of crowd. There is absolutely no space. So in terms of urban mobility, the only way to connect was through a ropeway. So here we partnered with a European firm to even design the gondolas. So this is the 2.8 kilometers of a ropeway. So again, inspiration of the stations is through local art. So these are the station designs. These are the actual photographs of installation. So this is a very, very interesting project. This is a dynamic project where one is designing and at the same time the design is changing. Because in terms of how a ropeway plays, where architecture and engineering is very, very important and they go hand in hand. And next now is repositioning of bus terminals as intermodal hubs where we are having buses on the ground and chopper facilities on the rooftop, having commercial and office spaces on the other side to offset the cost of these public spaces. So this is how the project looks like in terms of zoning. And skywalks in terms of to connect the public plaza and the bus terminals with the commercial utilization of the other parcel of the land. Some of the shots of the terminal along with ropeway. The interiors, heavy in terms of cultural connect. And we were very lucky to be part of a project where we had to create a project in just 4 months' time, design and construction. So this was a $150 million project where a 30,000 square meters of a connection between India and Pakistan had to come. And this was designed in such a short time. And this project was really appreciated by our Prime Minister through his Red Fort speech, where he said that if we can do a project in 4 months' time, then probably India can leap and bound in next 10 to 15 years. And this was constructed all in steel and inspiring by the local tradition of a khanda, which is a symbol of Sikh architecture, where a project of a terminal connecting from one country to the other country was created. During construction. So 2 years project timeline squeezed to 4 months. Can you play the AV, please? And I think the AV will show how these projects were conceived and materialized. Thank you so much. So this is a project in the hinterlands of the country, so where a very simple terminal design was conceived.
डेरा बाबा नानक करतारपुर साहिब और इसी के कॉरिडोर को दोनों देशों के लोगों के लिए शुरू करने की पहल पूर्व प्रधानमंत्री स्वर्गीय श्री अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी जी ने की थी। वो सपना अब साकार होने जा रहा है। डेरा बाबा नानक करतारपुर साहिब कॉरिडोर अब सबके लिए खुलने जा रहा है।
करतारपुर कॉरिडोर का ये टर्मिनल बिल्डिंग का स्ट्रक्चर का काम हो रहा है और बहुत ही हमारी लिमिटेड टाइमलाइन में शाहपुर जी की टीम, कंसल्टेंट क्रिएटिव ग्रुप और एलपीआई के सभी इंजीनियर पूरी कोशिश कर रहे हैं इसको सारे की सारी कोऑर्डिनेशन, स्ट्रक्चर की, आरसीसी का काम, फ्लोरिंग और सभी डिफरेंट ट्रेड्स को हम इकट्ठे कोशिश कर रहे हैं करने की, क्योंकि समय बहुत ही कम है इस कॉम्प्लेक्स प्रोजेक्ट को करने के लिए। Thank you so much.